Post-Conference 2021. My name is Jesus Gonzalez, president and co-founder of Sonus Agency, a cultural consultancy that works with brands, agencies, labels, nonprofits, and artists to connect the dots in the Latinx space in a culturally relevant fashion. I was most recently SVP of Brands and Partnerships at Universal Music Latin Entertainment, where I oversaw partnerships between some of the top Latin talent like J Balvin, Pepsi, and Juanes and MasterCard, getting to do some incredible stuff and really seeing the explosion of Latin music. We're so happy to be joining you here today for this panel, The World's Soundtrack, Latin Music. So thank you to all our memes family out there. I had the pleasure of participating in 2019. My co-moderator, Marjorie Garcia, participated last year and will be leading this conversation. I want to start by sharing some interesting facts. As we start 2021, the #1 music artist in the world is Bad Bunny, a Puerto Rican Spanish language rapper, singer, and songwriter. At any given time, a majority of the most viewed videos on YouTube are of Latin music. J Balvin released a collaboration last year with Nike Air Jordan, Fortnite, and McDonald's on par with Travis Scott. In the last few years, Latin music has surpassed EDM and country in the US in terms of consumption and is now verifiably a global phenomenon. The RIAA, Recording Industry Association of America, trade body, revealed that Latin music surge intensified, growing by almost 30% to 554 million in 2019 in comparison to 10 to 14% for the overall US music market. With more than 95% of Latin music revenue not coming from streaming, there is no end in sight. It continues from the reggaeton trap movement emanating from Colombia and PR to the Spanish hip hop trap corridos of the Southwest US and Mexico. The sounds that define Latin music are transcending language and geographic barriers. A prime example is Bad Bunny's SNL performance this past weekend, which also featured a duet with Spanish songstress Rosalia. In this panel, we'll be discussing the many facets that have led to the explosion of Latin music on a global scale. We'll explore how the Latin industry has and will continue to prosper in this normal. I have the pleasure to now welcome my co-moderator, Marjorie Garcia, to start us off and intro our panelists.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I joined in my co-panelist, Jesus, to say thank you for inviting us back. I had the pleasure to do this last year. It was such a phenomenal event. I'm sure that this will be insightful and important to you. We're so excited to also welcome you into our business. We know that you're all students, and so I hope that we can give you some knowledge to use in the future as well. I'm completely honored to present the panelists. They are a group of people who we've had the pleasure to work with on many different occasions, who are experienced and are like us trying to figure out how to make it all work during the pandemic. Just a very quick thing about me. I'm a partner at King Holmes, Paterno Soriano, which is one of the major and important music law firms here in Los Angeles. There's not many of me that look like me as partners in a music law firm, so it is. I recognize the importance of my representation here on the panel. So, and I want to introduce our co-panelists, and what we'll do is we'll have them give you a little bit of bio information as they answer the first question for the panelists today. Over the last year, we've seen the musical ecosystem in the world at large change drastically. All industries have had to adapt. Especially the music industry, it's had to pivot with the loss of live performances. And they've had to figure out how to engage fans and audiences with the live element out of the picture. With everything now virtual and online, the noise and conversations is more difficult to break through. What is something that each of you has tried or seen an artist do, or an artist yourself, do as an example of thinking outside the box? And I introduce to you Gaby Herrera, Richard Lom, and Snow the Product. And if we could do it in that order.
Well, hi, I'm Gaby Herrera. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm an artist manager. I started off my career in music in the record label world. I worked for Sony Latin for quite some time, first on the US Latin side, then transitioned into Central America and the Caribbean. And I got pulled into artist management, although I always knew that that was going to end up being my thing. So I've been managing multi-platinum recording artist Prince Royce for a few years now, and I recently launched a boutique management firm, which we can talk a little bit more about later. Answering that first question, I think that it's definitely been a challenging year to say the least, but I think that it's kind of forced the industry as a whole, artists, executives, to think outside the box and get creative, right? At the beginning, it was obviously hard to get out of our comfort zone, but it was necessary to move the needle. There's been so much done, especially, digitally speaking. And a few examples that come to mind specifically to me are, those that have been authentic to artists and what they represent. I think that nowadays within, the industry, so much competition, there's so much saturation, right? That element for anything that an artist does is authenticity, right? Or an executive in my case. So Bad Bunny, for instance, and the live stream show that he did on Univision's Euphoria app, he literally, performed on top of a truck across, New York City. That was something super intriguing. He attracts millions of people. It was out of the box, and it's what people want to see. Also, collaborations between the gaming community and music have always existed, but I think they just, we took it to the next level this year. And I'm sure Richard can talk a little bit about, what went on with J Balvin and Fortnite, for instance, in the Latin realm. It was awesome, and also just a different form of immersive entertainment. Lastly, Camilo is one of the hottest acts in Latin music today, and how he's been using TikTok to, as a strategic component of his music releases, I think is amazing. The power of a 30-minute snippet on social media nowadays can make a record become a global hit without, the need of media. So those are just a couple of things that specifically in the Latin music scene, I think are good examples of how artists have been thinking outside of the box.
That's so great. Thank you. Snow?
I mean, that I can't really follow up with like all those big names and big brands and stuff like that. But what I can say about Latino artists and like where, for example, I'm at with everything is like, I do think that the infrastructure is changing a little bit. And if anything, COVID has helped to kind of make it an even playing field for a lot of different artists for everything from regional Mexican music to, all the Caribbean music and all the reggaeton and everything like that. So I think I'm going to be able to speak on that type of stuff of level playing field right now for Latinos, and a very exciting time actually for all of us to be able to be doing some big things.
Excellent. Richard?
Hey everybody, honored to be speaking with you all. I don't normally like to do these things, but I'm pushing myself outside my comfort zone, which is something I recommend everybody to do. So I've been in the music business my whole life. My parents had an independent record label back in the late 80s, early 90s. My first job when I was in 8th grade, I guess I witnessed the first digital revolution when we went from cassettes and LPs to CDs, and I worked in the warehouse, moving out those, dumping the cassettes and transitioning over to CDs. Fast forward, I worked on an independent Latin record label, which we sold to Universal, then transitioned to live performances. I was a promoter for a major Latin media company. I found my passion in that. It's my passion to see people enjoying themselves in mass. Like once I went to my first show as a promoter, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Did that for 10 years, got approached by WME. I'm a music agent at WME. I oversee a big chunk of our Latin roster. Been here for 6 years. And yeah, this is an amazing company. It's truly like the big leagues, and I'm really honored to work at this company. As far as like what's been going on and how people can differentiate themselves, how acts have been differentiating themselves, and Gaby, like she hit the nail right on the head. Like all these non-traditional things that our acts have been doing, and really finally getting the attention, the proper attention from the brand world, which has taken quite a bit of time, and there's still a lot of education that's taking place. I tell my colleagues that, for the major brands, Madison Avenue ad agencies, like half of our job is just speaking about Latin culture. It's like it's how do I say it? Hispanic Heritage Month for us. It's like every month, because like we're constantly out teaching about our culture, and then getting into like what the business is. So brands have just been super important. Gaby talked about Fortnite. I'm sure everyone saw Bad Bunny and Snoop Dogg's Corona commercial. Alvin with McDonald's, who's one of my clients. Rosalia launched, was it the Nike Air Max, the latest Nike Air Max last year. Maluma with Michelob Ultra. I mean, I think we're going to lean into that. I think for this year, that's something that is definitely going to get leaned into by acts, to use that as a platform to just keep getting out there.
That's excellent.
Amazing insight. So as we dive a little deeper, we'll start with you, Gaby. Your career, like you said, started at Sony Music Latin, then you transition over to management. Now with your boutique agency, In Tempo Entertainment. Can you talk about that transition? You say you always saw it. What do you see as major opportunities in that Latin music space with the launch of your boutique agency?
I mean, it's no secret that Latin music is global, and it sounds like a cliche to us, within the industry, because we hear it so much, but I think we need to repeat that because it's huge. And the fact that we over-index in terms of music, like digital music consumption and streaming, is amazing. So the opportunities are limitless. I think that as a society, we also used to close doors for ourselves. There were certain doors that we wouldn't knock because we were afraid of getting no's. And as Richard was mentioning, brands are now attracted to us, and it's just, we have the same exact opportunities that these so-called general market apps, which obviously I respect, but we're on the same level now. So I don't really want to identify what specific opportunities there are, because I feel like we have the same opportunities as anyone and everyone. And as Latinos, we're global. We're everywhere. Obviously, again, like going back on music consumption, 90%. Over 90% of music consumption in Latin comes from streaming. That's ginormous. We're catering to a young, tech-savvy consumer, and that's where the future is, right? So, I think, again, like I wouldn't want to touch on specific opportunities because they're endless.
Overall,
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, Snow, you're a rapper, you're an actress, you're an entrepreneur. You probably didn't give yourself the correct bio, but you have done so much, have accomplished so much in the last 10 years, and continue to sort of have this very do-it-yourself attitude. Has that now been amplified for you during this pandemic, or how do you talked about sort of leveling the playing field? How has this really helped you sort of come into your own with your own businesses and all the different things that you do on a daily basis?
Well, for me specifically, it's because, oh, and by the way, yeah, adding to that is I'm very, very bad about talking about myself, especially when it's an intro. So yeah.
All around
I feel like for people like, thank you. No, I mean, I feel like for people like myself, and more, for people like myself that are independent, I think it has leveled out the playing field, because that's awesome. Like a lot of opportunities are happening for J Balvin, Bad Bunny, Maluma. Like those are the names that are brought up though. That's it. Like those are, like, let's be honest with what the Latin industry is. Unless you're one of those humongous artists, everybody else is just not good enough, and you get a couple opportunities come, Latin Heritage Month or whatever the hell, but other than that, like, you don't really see that, and the thing about being independent, especially, there's a difference now between being independent and being, you have a whole team, like a management, and like you're assigned to a label, and then being independent where you're your own label and you're your own management. Um, that's what I mean by leveling the playing field. Because with me, I do have 2022, tour booked. I do have 21 spot dates. I do have a thriving business of merchandise where I'm literally making seven figures. You know what I mean? It's like my music is doing super well, like as far as where I was, at a major label, when you're kind of giving all this runaround about dropping songs. So I might have dropped four songs, probably like four real songs, the whole time I was at Atlantic. And now I'm like just dropping a bunch of music. I see the money that helps me help my team, like my family, that they work for me. So that makes us, the happiness is just so much more there now. And you would think that COVID would make artists like more depressed, but when you have all the power in your hands, this has been like a time that my my peace of mind and my quality of life has improved so much, that like the playing field's even, because I'm just that much more happy and making that much more money than I was, playing the game, which is the whole industry thing, and just going to all these I don't know, it's just the industry crap, you know what I mean? Like now I'm just kind of like, I'm good. Like it's me to the fans to me. I work with whoever I want to, and that's what I mean by, just on some quality of life stuff, Artists have
Right.
always, it's very depressing to be an artist sometimes, and like when you start to
Right.
value that happiness that comes with having it in your own hands, I think that's what I mean. It's just
Right.
good. You don't have to be J Balvin to be happy. Like in some
Yeah.
cases, you know.
Like,
100.
absolutely.
Hashtag
And
humility.
technology has allowed for that to happen, right? Where you have direct, at the push of a button, DSPs are getting your stuff, and I like how she went from Shkaita to all these accomplishments and the muscle that you've built up, right, over these last 10 years. Like you've played the game and you've paid your dues, right? So you're in a position now where you have that direct access to that fan, and you built a genuine fan base, that's not fluff. I mean, like when this girl says that she has 22 dates booked, and you see pictures of her shows and the excitement and engagement with your fans, you built that ecosystem, and now you're thriving upon it. And she really is a machine. Like videos at her ranch, songs from one day to the next, right? And a lot of artists now have that, right? On all levels, independent and major, but
Yeah.
definitely evening and democratization of access to that. And you're really leveraging and are the epitome of that. Going back to you, Richard, you kind of touched upon WME and some of the artists you represent, from Balvin to Prince Royce, Nicky Jam, Juanes. Can you dive a little bit more into in terms of how WME as a whole has navigated this pandemic?
Sure. I mean, I'll just go a little bit of a deep dive just to get everyone an idea of like what my day is like, or what it is. What is a music game? So first off, like at WME, like nobody lives on an island. We wholeheartedly believe in a team approach when it comes to working with any act that we represent. So my specialty is touring. So I live and breathe that bit of my client's business. I primarily work US Latin, though we have something called the territorial system where we have offices in London, New York, Nashville, and Los Angeles, music offices, and we have agents at all these offices, and they become experts in territories. So we created something called the territorial system, and agents become experts. My expertise is Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and Brazil. So on top of my regular job of U.S. Latin, like I creep into those territories where I get to book the whole roster. So I'm talking to Rock in Rio, for instance, and I'm just throwing names out there. I mean, if I'm talking about the headliner for Rock in Rio, like a Drake or an Adele, like I can also have a conversation and say, hey, you guys should consider Bombasterio from Colombia. Let's give them a shot on your electronic stage. So, using that leverage has helped get new opportunities for my clients. During this pandemic, it hasn't been easy. So we've been lucky. Like all businesses, we've taken hits. Our bosses, I'm sure, have had to make very tough decisions. Luckily at WME, we're highly diversified. So we acquired the UFC a few years ago. UFC was the first professional sport to go back with everyone at home. Let's see, like Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Apple, Peacock, like all these streaming services have had a huge appetite for content. We represent actors, directors, people who create this content. So there's been a huge demand and luckily an increased level of competition because there are so many platforms. So that also has helped the company, navigate this. Even with theaters closed, there's been growth in that area of the business. So it kind of all balances itself out. And when music does come back, it's gonna come back. Snow's got dates into 22, maybe even some in 21. Let's see. We're praying on the vaccine rollout. We're bullish. We're bullish that once live events come out, people are going to go out, and the business will be stronger than ever.
I wanted to just also take the opportunity to say that if anybody in the audience had a question, please do send us questions. We'll address them as we go through our own questions for the panelists. One question actually just popped up before I said that. The question is, I love Bad Bunny and Balvin, but Latinas don't seem to have the same level of recognition. How are you driving this change? Anyone can feel free to answer that question. I think I am interested also in someone like Gaby, who's an executive, right? Working in a space that maybe is more male dominated. How are you as an executive in Snow? How are you as an artist changing and helping to push women into the forefront of your music? Whichever one.
Yeah, definitely. As an executive, unfortunately, I don't love to talk about it because I'm more of the sense of, working towards fixing the problem than focusing on the problem. But it is an issue, and it's historically been an issue. Women are underrepresented, not only as artists, but as executives. There are not many women that do what I do. There aren't, many artists, managers that are females. And I think that that's the first step, to have, role models, to have people that, do it and make it and have, achievements that you look forward to having yourself, like people that are at school. When I was at the label, I'm going to be completely honest. One of the things that, kind of pushed me back a little in terms of growth opportunities internally was the fact that I wouldn't see any females in the glass windows, which is what we would call it. So, the big offices at the label didn't have or barely had female representation. And I feel like that has slowly but surely changed and shifted, and it's going to continue to do so because every day we have more people in roles like my role, in roles, there's booking agents, there's the VP for Sony Latin is now a female, and that wasn't the case 10 years ago. So I feel like it's a process that also starts within. We need to, as corporations, also look into hiring, more females. That again, these students and even children, can look up to.
Snow?
I mean, I think she's absolutely right about, not focusing on the problem and just kind of like doing it. You know what I mean? Like the only way that I can help is do a good job at what I do, because then I'm a good representation and I'm a good example of what Latina artists should be. I think when it's transactional and people just do things for the sake of there should be more this, so they do it that way, it doesn't come off as genuine. It doesn't connect, and that actually ends up sometimes hurting the the cause that it's trying to help. When you get a Latina artist that gets to be a huge voice for Latinos, and when it comes to a political statement or BLM or anything like that, they say the stupidest thing you can ever imagine. That actually hurts us. That's like, there you go. That's what y'all's representation is, and it's like it sucks. It's a frustrating thing because the best thing you can do is try to be a good representation at whatever it is you do. You're Marjorie. You're an amazing attorney. I definitely can vouch for that, and so you're doing a great representation at what you do. Gaby's doing a great representation at what she does. We all try to do the best that we can. But to be honest, we can't change. We need to remember that we are Latinos, and like there's a lot of undoing in our culture that has to happen in order for us to even get an even playing field just within our own community. So sometimes it is a little frustrating because it's like, bro, there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen just because culturally we know what our culture is. You know what I mean? So I think just doing a good job at what you do, and just continuing to push, and we can mention that there's lack of female representation, but we also can't just sit there and make transactional decisions or force the hand because we want that, because then that's how you make dumb decisions over things. That's my opinion.
Amazing, amazing, and I second that, Margie, Gabby, Snow. I mean,
Oh,
you guys just being here and on this panel, you're inspiring, all the women that are watching this. So you are already the solution in action, right? So kudos. Going back to Gabby and Snow, from a creative perspective now in this new normal, to touch on that a bit, how has that affected your process or your client's process, Gabby, from creating content, music to release strategies? How are you or your clients recording, collaborating, and keeping the creatives flowing?
So from a client's perspective, it's been challenging, especially in the beginning. It was challenging because it's just the fear of the unknown. We didn't really understand what was going on. But I think that the industry in general just rapidly adapt to that, and you started seeing remote recording sessions that wouldn't happen before. Artists started to learn how to record themselves. It was uncomfortable to have virtual songwriting sessions, but now that they had the time, and that I feel like artists have been, correct me if I'm wrong, Snow, but I think that artists have been more inspired and have had the chance to be more creative than ever, because they've typically lived in a very fast-paced environment, and they could literally sit down to to create. Aside from the fact that I think that the whole situation that everybody was going through, because literally everybody from A to Z, had that same feeling at some point. Once the pandemic started, I think that was also a source of inspiration. So I feel like a lot of artists have taken this time to create, and that we're going to be hearing a lot of amazing music going forward. Also with a sense of nostalgia. We saw a trend at some point of like oldies coming back and people consuming catalog music, and I think little by little we've started to get hints of integration of either like older sounds or just fusions between rock and reggaeton, or even in the tropical realm. I think people are paying a little bit more attention to that because of that nostalgia, right? That we all, that common feeling that everybody went through last year. And I'll let Snow talk about it from an artist perspective.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was different. I think at the beginning it was a little bit like, whoa, what's going on for everybody? I think for me, because I was just in a very particular place where like I hadn't dropped some music for so long that like I kind of just was excited to get into it. But I think it even hit me, someone who was excited to work on music so much. And I think now it's been even easier now that things are kind of changing. It's been easier to make music and drop stuff. And I think that's funny you touched on that. The you know, the cool thing about, like, for example, TikTok is that any song can get famous at any time. You know what I mean? You could have dropped the song 3 years ago and like you thought that's it, you know, the rollout happened, everything happened, and that's it. And all of a sudden somebody finds it at the right moment, and then things are just picking up, and you see the trends, you know, pick up. Like I've had a couple songs where it's like they didn't go viral, but they picked up, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool, because it kind of changes an artist's perspective of like, you know, like every song right now that music is so like microwave, you have to keep on making songs and like just keep on dropping stuff. It's like it is cool to have a catalog, and to any of those songs now is just like living in the universe, and it's like so cool. So I don't know, it is, I feel like I'm very excited for where the music industry is going, in that sense that like at the same way that music has been so like you have to drop so much music, um there's also so much life now to it, you know. Streams changed the way that things used to be. Before, somebody bought a song and that's it, they just own it, you know, unless their CD gets scratched they won't buy it again, you know. And now it's just like everyone can always go back to those songs all the time, and just you never know when. I think that's the excitement in the music industry. And I come from a very like mental health thought of like being an artist, because I've had this conversation with, you know, industry people, like from managers to any, like, you know, any people that work in the industry in some capacity. And I think the hardest part about this is that artists being the product, you know, like that's why my name is Snow the Product, is like the artist being the product, they have all these feelings, you know, all these things attached to like these songs, or like their brand, or like am I falling off, or like what does everybody think. And it's like that messes with your head so much. So the fact that right now people have been able to slow down and have been able to just look at their life and be like, okay, cool, you know, like before you're on a ticking thing. It's like, okay, I'm going on tour in 5 months, I have 5 months to do this stuff, or I'm back on the road and I'm not even home for another, you know, month and a half, 2 months. Whereas now you're just like, wow, like I'm home. Like what do I need to change within myself, within my surroundings, environment? And I think that's going to turn into a lot of happier artists, and happier artists make happier, you know, better music. And that is really, you know, on some big like thing gonna like change the world. I think there'll be better music and better choices, hopefully, you know, as long as artists are happier, except for some of us that are like sufrido artists that, you know, we need to feel sad sometimes, like heartbroken, then that's gonna suck. Gets a little hard. Somebody recently wanted to shoot a music video that was like kind of sad, you know, and I'm just like, it's like I'm finding it hard to reach those feelings right now. I'm like, I'm okay, like hit me up later when I'm going through something.
I love
Real
that.
quick, I also feel like, or I know that it's this the whole pandemic and the situation has also been. I like to look at the positive, you know, in things, and it's been an opportunity for artists and fans to connect even further, because of, you know, the world going through the same situation. I feel like it's also given the artist the opportunity to get to know their fan base and their following even more, and vice versa. And ultimately, I hope, and I think it will affect, you know, things like touring. You know, it goes back to that nostalgia. People are missing, you know, live concerts, live entertainment so bad. They're missing, you know, being able to see their artist and take a photo with them at a meet and greet. So that relationship between, you know, artist and fan, I think has been strengthened throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
speaking of missing touring, Richard. So now that, you know, we've had this time for the Snows of the world to rest, the Gabbies of the world to strategize. Richard, what are we doing on the WME side? How do we supplement? How do we support the artists during this time when there's not the ability to tour? We saw that with the amazing deals you all accomplished this year with Prince Royce, Trident, and Nicola. How is that changing your deal making? How are you supplementing? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, we went, and Gaby, we'll just do the aside with Royce. It was March 12th, Thursday, March 12th at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. Royce was on the fifth day of his alter ego tour. the trucks rolled up on the forum, and we're talking to the forum, we're talking to the promoter, someone's talking to the government, like, is the show gonna happen? Because like this is the day that the world hit the fan, right? So like we don't know what we're gonna do. Let's just wait. We finally made the decision. F it. We're gonna do the show. Roy said, we're doing this show. And I mean, I think that was the last show that has happened in an arena, well, at least in California for sure. And it was an amazing show. Since then, had to pivot, to say the least. And you mentioned a bunch of the deals that we were thankfully able to get. There's a bunch of also other lesser known ones. Look, getting these deals is just, it's not easy. I mean, with no one touring, when a brand says, hey, I need an artist for a campaign, all of a sudden the supply of talent grossly outweighs, the number of deals out there, So thankfully, Gaby and Royce gave us very strong ammo with Royce. I mean, he's obviously a global superstar, but when you're talking with brands, like they always want to associate, with people that are doing things that are, important. And Royce last year, he had a number one song, Forever, Carita Inocente. I think he'd even got a Guinness Book of World Record for like, I don't even know how many weeks it was number one. And then he replaced himself at number one with Loteria. So had that amazing story. He was the only artist to perform on the DNC with his stunning performance of Stand By Me. I'm sure everybody here saw that, which was just an incredible cultural moment. Thankfully, like we were able to leverage all this hard work that Gaby and her team did to, fight out a year that really would have been shit and, turned it into a bit of a positive.
That's great. We do have another question, and I'm just going to have it pop up. We have a couple. Let's see. Oh, this is a great one. In the past, Latin music became popular in cycles. For example, Daddy Yankee, Shakira in the 2000s. Do you think there's longevity in the industry now? What are your thoughts, panelists? Is there longevity? Are we going to be around for a long time?
Here are my thoughts. So Richard, thankfully to streaming, right? Look, somebody said this before. There's Latins are everywhere. We're everywhere in this world. Yo soy cubano. Like I'm Latino. We're everywhere. And streaming, that consumption, like we can now measure consumption and we know where everyone is at. Before, people would buy CDs. You never knew how many times they played the song. Now you know that somebody is playing a song at 3 o'clock in the morning in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they're jamming out to Snow the Prophets, So like, it's just told the business that guess what? Like we are everywhere. And I mean, look, music is in our DNA. I mean, we all grew up, us Hispanics, like going to quinceañeras. When after our first communion, like we had that party at home and we had dance salsa, like that is just part of who we are. And longevity, yes. Unfortunately, my kids are like, go ahead, sorry.
No, the Bautizo too, right? It's always the jam. But yeah, to add to that, I mean, we're seeing it. And I always tell people it's due to, right, the streaming. Obviously, 95% of revenue is now from streaming and the democratization of that access, right? Years back when the industry at large was just demolished by pirateria and file sharing. Now it's streaming. I know most Latino kids, my mom would never give me a credit card for iTunes, right? She would say, "Tas pendejo." So we didn't have access to legal methods, which not to justify, but that drove pirateria and other access, right? Now, we could talk about value gaps there with the 0.00 in streams, but the fact that, as Richard says, you could be in Zacatecas, you could be in Colombia, and that stream counts and the consumption counts, and it's coming in by the hundreds of millions, right? When you scale that. So there's no end in sight just between that access. And in terms of the depth, when Mark Anthony happened, J-Lo, those were were like flashes, right? But it was at a very commercial, superficial level. Now, snow, like, that's cultura, right? We're seeing it at a very cultural level where the underlying theme between general market and Latinos as a new general market is lifestyle. When you see snow, when you see a English rapper, Spanish rapper, a kid in Colombia, Nike, like buying the same Nikes in Colombia, Medellin, as in LA, consuming the same music, it's really at a lifestyle, cultural level. And that wasn't there before. When you see a Balvin sitting at LV, front row and mixing in at a cultural level, that shows every indication, the consumption and streaming, that this is going nowhere, guys, right?
No, and when you see, to add to all of that, when you see Selena Gomez releasing an album in Spanish, entirely in Spanish, when you see Billie Eilish sing in Spanish with Rosalia, when you see The Weeknd sing in Spanish with Maluma, it's happened so many times, and it had happened in the past, but it's just getting
It was
tired.
always the other way around. The Spanish artists and label knocking on the English label door, like, can you please feature with us? Now they're coming to us because they know that Bad Bunny, J Balvin's the Spanish language artists, the Nathaniel Canos now with the trap corridos, the corridos tumbados, are consuming on a global level, right at par or even more than them within that market, right, guys? So so much to continue to talk about. Unfortunately, we're getting here to the end. So we want to end here with some final statements in terms of, what each of you have planned for the year and what are you most looking forward to? What excites you right now in terms of artists or anything to be on the lookout for? And we can start, Gabby, Stowe, Rich.
Richard.
Okay. All right. So, Gabby mentioned, so I'm completely obsessed with Camilo right now. I've been thinking, God, there's going to be a return to that, Latin singer-songwriter, and now you got a guy that's kind of like Ed Sheeran-esque. It's probably a bad description of him, but he can jump on a reggaeton. He can jump on a bachata. He did something. He did something with oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but super versatile, and I am just completely looking forward to what he's going to come up with next.
I am looking forward to live entertainment. I cannot wait to be at a concert there, and I'm sure that Richard, that's on your list as well. But there's something about that energy and a live show that has to come back soon. And in terms of like musical artists, I'm all about women empowerment and artists like Snow the Product, that are doing their thing. Someone I'm very excited about, just going back to that subject of Latin being on a global scale now, is Carol G. I've always been, I've been a big supporter of what she does, and I think it's, I admire how she's elevated, her career to new heights, how she's empowering, young artists and just Latinas in general. She's doing amazing things, so I can't wait to see, what she brings to the table next.
Amazing.
So,
My plan, I'm just gonna keep doing what I've been doing, man. Scaling, that's pretty much all I can do, you know what I mean? Like I think like I said, this has been a very important moment for me and my career and life. I think people sometimes forget, I guess I'm kind of more on some hippie stuff about that. Like ultimately, even though this is our job and this is, and it engulfs us to the point where, this becomes our life. And if, you just want to make sure that you're making the right decisions that make you happy and that make the people around you, the people you love the most, happy, because, you can't gain the world and lose yourself or the people you love, So I think overall, just being happy, scaling, doing some cool stuff, but similar to how we said, there's been those moments for Latinos, but then they sometimes go away. But at some point, it will come out. Like it will come out that we do consume music that much. Like you can only be a ghostwriter for so long before you get the credit. Or publicly get the credit. So I think I believe the good guy always wins. So just nose to the grindstone, keep working. Opportunities will come. I don't know. Big believer in the universe, so something will give.
Yes.
Amazing.
I love that.
Amazing.
Well,
guys,
I would have loved to one more question, but I think we've probably run out of time. But I want to thank you three, Jesus, for getting on this panel and for educating the next round, the new executives, the new artists, the new Richards, the new Gabbies, the new Snows that are coming up. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Jesus?
Thank you guys, and thanks in
Thank
UCLA
you.
Anderson School of Management.